Welcome to Season 2, Episode 20 of ChrisCast. My name's Chris Abraham, and today I'm just going to noodle on about an online novel that I've been writing since May 13th, 2005. So it's been 15 years. And it isn't going anywhere, and it's evolved and changed, and probably will never result in a publication unless I actually do it. But who knows? Maybe it will be out on its 20th anniversary, or maybe never. But I've gotten more into it, so I'll tell you more about it after the break. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's where I started my podcast. It's where I edited my podcast. It's where I put sound design into my podcast. And it's where I monetize my podcast. And it's from where I share my podcast to every single other podcast platform. It's the place that I decided is the easiest and best place for me to podcast. Thank you. Check it out. Welcome back to episode 20, season 2, ChrisCast. Hurrah, hurrah, 20 episodes. Hurrah, hurrah, 20 episodes. 15 years ago and a few months, 15 years ago and 4 months, I started an online attempt at creating an anonymous novel. I called it Hill Mole for the following reasons. I had lived on Capitol Hill since 1997, and in the same apartment since 1998 or 1999, and it was 2005, and I had become a very much ingrained regular on Capitol Hill. And by Capitol Hill, I define Eastern Market all the way to 14th Street. I do not include in my world, I do not include all the way over to all the way up to North Capitol and South Capitol. However, there's forays. My Masonic Lodge is on Pennsylvania Avenue, further down towards the 2nd, 3rd, 4th Street, and of course, things are not just on 7th Street; they're also on 8th Street, Southeast, and that entire area was my home base, and I spent a lot of time living in what I called the grotto. At the time, it was the basement apartment at 14th and A Southeast. There's a storefront there that's actually a private residence. I lived in the spacious basement apartment, and it included a deck. And I spent a lot of my time at the various incarnations of the coffee houses that are now where Peregrine Coffee is, right there on 7th Street Southeast. Used to be called, I think, Roasters on the Hill, and then it was called Murky Coffee, and now it's Peregrine Coffee, I believe. And I loved it. And of course, Eastern Market is actually a working market, except when it was burned down. And there is on the weekends a market proper, and there are there's a flea market there. There's a new market there. There's an art market there. And this was my world. It included Lincoln Park, the place of um, the notorious sculpture of Abraham Lincoln with the slave, or releasing the slave from slavery. It was my entire world, and in that world, there was a painter who painted in watercolors, and there was my dear friend Sarah and her sister Susie and her parents, and there were my friends Andrew and David and Min and Amy and all the people that I knew. And I used to have these little fantasies, little funny fantasies. I've always been interested in adventure novels like Mac Bolan, and I've loved James Bond. And I just entered this little fantasy because we lived on Capitol Hill, because when you'd be sitting at the coffee shop, I'm not much of a stargazer, but there was always some person from Capitol Hill coming by. And when I would be sitting with someone who knew the ugly, you know what they say, DC is Hollywood for ugly people, the boring, ugly, bloated faces of the Hill celebrities, such from the Congress and the Senate and the staffers, etc. Even the people behind the people, I would realize that that DC was an active city, an active city like Berlin, Paris, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and London, if I haven't said London already. So I was like, well, there's got to be spies here, so I will pretend that everybody that I know has a cover story. Oh, this was also a time when I was dating a doctor out of McLean, and she was a doctor, and her dad supposedly worked at a bureaucracy on the Hill, or no, in DC. Not Bureau of Statistics, but the profession where you spend all your time trying to figure out what someone's lifetime will be. But Wendy and her dad Ben had both been to Yale, and so this would be serious underperformance if they were only a plastic surgeon and a DC bureaucrat. So part of this fruited from the fact that I've thought to myself, wow, when I'm sleeping over at Wendy's, she can get a call at any time, day or night, and none of her neighbors would blink an eye. She could be an assassin or a honey trap, or she could be an operator. And those weird hours would completely be understandable, much more understandable than someone who's leaving their garage at 3:00 in the morning. If you don't know that they're a long distance runner, or that they have some sort of weird workout routine, or if they don't have a strange job that requires them to keep strange hours that are inconsistent over time, who's more like that than a doctor, right? A doctor who is on call at the local hospital, a private practice, but she could easily negotiate cheating on me. I thought she could easily negotiate working for whomever. These calls could be completely not associated at all with her doctoring life. Same thing with Ben. Spent many years over at their house over holidays, and all of his friends are spooky. So obviously, his job as hey Google, What is the job for someone who predicts someone's lifetime or life length?
Sorry, I don't know how to help with that. Here are other things you can try.
Alexa, what is the job where someone is able to figure out how long someone will live?
Here's something I found on the web. According to sparkpeople.com, life goes on.
That was stupid.
I'm happy to hear how I can improve. You can always say, I have feedback.
Yikes.
Sorry, I'm having trouble. Please try in a little while.
Well, anyway, that didn't work. Well, anyway, back to this. It was amusing the heck out of me, so I took it further, and there's a watercolorist on the hill called Tom Bucci, and he would always just spend all of his time every afternoon, from 2 or 3 all the way till closing, sitting in Peregrine or Murky or Roasters, and he would be, noodling on his whatever, his now it's an iPad, but back in the day it was a notebook or it was a sketch pad or whatever. But because he's an artist, he has carte blanche to just sit there and observe what's going on without any accountability. He can even stare off into the he could just stare at people and look around, and his plausible deniability is that he is an artist and he's just someone who looks. That was something that Mark used to tell me, is that I really should have remained a photographer because it gives me access to looking without with a camera. I'm a photographer. Without a camera, I'm a creepy guy who stares. Anyway, so this idea coalesced into coming up with an idea, and the idea was sort of like a mixture of Notes from the Underground and that Matt Damon movie where he doesn't know he's a spy, but then he's a spy, and it was sort of this first-person narrative of this dude who knows a lot about what's going on around him, but doesn't know why he does, whether he believes maybe he's crazy, maybe he's not, that he's been trained but doesn't remember, but has this amazing situational awareness and ability to pick out spies, or maybe it's just paranoid delusion. And and it was really kind of, I think I was really on a roll, because I was making commentary about DC, I was making commentary about the Panopticon, I was exploring my own life, and I was sort of remapping spycraft onto it, and why not, because I'm in DC. So instead of making a mountain out of a molehill, I called it Hill Mole, because I lived on the hill, and this protagonist, this first person narrator, was a mole on the hill. Never really had a narrative, a storyline, a denouement, a plot. I just would write little quippy inserts, little quippy segments, inspired by Kurt Vonnegut's little 1-2 paragraph chapters, and just had fun with it. And there's really not that many, considering I've been doing it for 15 years. I would say now there are exactly 190 chapters in the book. And when I installed it back in 2005, May 13th, I installed it using a Perl script based CGI proto blogging tool called TypePad. And it was, you had to pay for it, but you can install it onto a web server. You can install it into Apache, and if you set up the permissions correctly via SSH and FTP, you would be able to create a dynamic website that actually wasn't dynamic in the way that WordPress is a database-backed site, where the more traffic you get, the more weight and the more the more services used, the more resources used based on heavy traffic. The beautiful thing about gray matter and early hosting-based Blogspot, and of course this TypePad, is that every time you hit submit to the blog post, it would run a CGI script, which would take up an enormous amount of resources. But once the site was re-rendered, it would go to all flat files. So the only time it was ever at all an application is during the re-rendering during posts or during changes and any changes to the site. So let's say you need to change the right column. You would change the code, and then you would have to re-render the entire site, and then it would go through a process of running through CGI bin, running through a Perl script, and then spitting out all the hundreds of pages associated with the site. And after that, it would be a flat file. So I have exactly that same TypePad install on there, and it is, believe it or not, actually, it must be a later one. I must have upgraded into 2006, because it is version 3.33 from 6 apart. And there you go. It's MovableType publishing platform. TypePad is the hosted version, so it's literally MovableType, and I've been running it ever since. And lately, I've been using it as a double blind. I mean, nowhere on the site is my name, but it's pretty much an open secret. But lately, I haven't felt like talking about controversial things on ChrisAbraham.com until I really have my ideas solidified and fully realized. And so, I don't know. I sort of brain dump onto Hillmole and do it in a way that's a little bit more, playful, or I try to come at things from someone who's spookier, more operator, more spycraft, more read in, more, super high clearance version of myself. So I do a lot of pretending on the site while I'm writing. I guess that's what a writer does, but it's no longer framed in pushing a storyline forward where this particular person who lives in a basement apartment on the hill has this life where he's surrounded by people who are probably painters, and are probably plastic surgeons, and are probably Washington bureaucrats. And here's the funny story. Like, I really created this idea that my friend Sarah and her sister Susie, and they don't look very much like each other, and their dad, who worked at USAID, and the mom, who's this quirky artiste, I came up with this idea that they were, did I even write it? I need to write it if I haven't. I had this idea that actually they weren't a family biologically, but that was their cover story, so all four of them could live together, and they had a plausible cover story to be living and deeply integrated into the Capitol Hill community, right? Hot blonde daughter, hot brunette daughter, amateur competitive cyclist dad who worked at USAID, which of course is we all know it's a front company for hearts and minds abroad, all that fun stuff. And the quirky artist mom, for me, they were all spies, and they were living a safe house life, and we all believed that they were family, but in fact, they were just connected together, much like a lot of the families in that TV show, The Americans, which at the time wasn't on TV, but definitely has a lot of concepts of families that were put together through intention so as to create a plausible cover story so that they could be embedded in communities in which they lived without being suspicious. So then it went further and further. My best friend Mark is, of course, disappears because he loves traveling and isn't reachable, and where did he go, and all that fun stuff turned him into an assassin, and I've just been really enjoying it. Now I've 190 chapters, and nobody reads it, and I don't know what to do with it next, but I really enjoy it. So I'm into it again now. I try to do a couple chapters a week. When I think of it, I've been, busy, and I've also been, doing other things. But let me know. Hillmole.com, HILLMOLE.com. Extremely fond of it, and I hope you are too. Anyway, I'll be back right after the break. Welcome back. My name's Chris Abraham. This is episode 20 of ChrisCast Season 2. I'm Chris Abraham, which I might have just said. And thank you for listening. You can reach me at chrisabraham.com. You could read my The Fever Dreams of Madness at hillmole.com. There's a little button at the top right that says you can start at the beginning. That goes all the way back to May 13th, 2005. Or you can read it backwards. So it's like a blog. There's only one chapter per page. And so you can read it backwards, or you can go all the way to the beginning. There's a link on the page, I think, at top right. Bottom right. I don't know. Believe it or not, that mole is, in fact, lives in Maryland. So I'm not even stealing a star-nosed mole from some Indonesian place. There's actually star-nosed moles in the mid-Atlantic, which I think is a beautiful coincidence. I love star-nosed moles. And you can reach me at Chris Abraham on Twitter, at Chris Abraham on Instagram, Facebook.com/Chris Abraham, YouTube.com/Chris Abraham. You could explore my Green Army Men fixation on YouTube right now. I'll go into it more later, I'm sure. And you can email me at chris@abraham.su. You can call me at +1 202 352 5051. You can schedule an appointment with me to talk at calendly.com/Chris Abraham /15/30, however long you want to talk. Calendly. I hope you're smart so you can spell it yourself. And you can text me at +1 202 352 5051. That's also my WhatsApp number. Anyway, I am glad you got all the way through to this, and I will talk to you soon. Love you, mahalo, nui loa, and ciao.